Hey, this is McGarren Flack, just going over the selection tool. Off to the left-hand side in the tool panel, you'll see a semicircle. It might have a different object, like a square that looks like dotted lines. If you left-click in that circle or square of dotted lines, it'll give you two options: the rectangular marquee tool, which is just rectangular, or an elliptical, which will create circles. The shortcuts are the same for both of the shapes in the marquee tool. If you want to create a selection, left click with your mouse and drag open the shape and you'll see these dotted lines appear. If you want it to be an oval or an ellipse, just simply have to left click and drag. If you want it to be a circle, you press Shift. And no matter what direction you go in, the constraint will stay the same. It will stay a circle. So once you get the shape size that you want, let go of Shift and your left click, and that will create your shape. Up into the left hand corner, up in the top here, are some options for you. You can add to this selection by clicking on this portion here, the Add to Selection. You can subtract from the selection by clicking here, or you can do an intersect with the selection. Another alternative, instead of clicking here and then coming down and adding to the selection, is by simply pressing Shift. If you hit Shift, you'll see at the crosshairs a little plus sign appears. I can move this mouse wherever I want, left click and hold it down, and drag it to whatever size or shape I want, and then let go of Shift and your left click, and it will add to that marquee. If I want to add another circle, I press the Shift button to see that plus sign, left click, drag it, let go, and it will add to it. If I want to add a geometric shape, left click, open up the geometric shape, hold Shift, and add to that selection. You can see now that these marching ants are going all around this shape that I just created. If I want to make it a more complex shape, then I press Alt. You can see the crosshairs. The Alt creates a negative. That means that it's going to subtract a selection. If I left click, drag, and let go, you can see that it cut out that shape. I'll cut out another shape down here by pressing Alt, left click, drag, and now it's cut out. You'll get the crosshairs. Once I go inside the selection area, it turns into a triangle. And if I left click with that triangle, I can move the whole selection. It's one big piece. Now if I want to paint in this selection, I can just go over to the Paintbrush tool, select it, making my brush a little bit smaller, and select my color, left click, and move it around. So now I'm creating an interesting design in this selection, or an uninteresting design in this selection. Nice thing about that, you can still see the marching ants that are going around. It's constrained to that shape and size. I can inverse the selection, meaning if I'm done painting inside the shape and I want to paint outside of the shape, out here, I need to go up to Select and Inverse. Now you'll see the marching ants are created around the border of the page and the border of the object that I had selected. If I try to paint inside where I was before, with left click, it's not working. But if I try to paint outside, because I inversed it, I can paint in that selection. So if I go back to selection and inverse it again, the marquee, you can see the marching ants going around the object and no longer around here. So I can only paint on the inside of this selection. If I want to paint anywhere on the page and I have a selection, I just need to go up to Select and Deselect. Now I can paint anywhere in the page. So the selection tool, really beneficial to be able to keep constraints of shapes and proportions. You can even turn them into masks later on, which we'll go over that in another video.